Hey guys, what's happening? So this here is a OnePlus 10T and this here is a OnePlus 10 Pro. And this is not a review or a comparison or anything like that. This is basically OnePlus 10T running Android 12, OxygenOS 12, and this 10 Pro is running OxygenOS 13 based on Android 13. And you might have guessed it, we are here to compare them both in order to find out every possible change that has been made with Android 13. So, what are we waiting for? This is Gaurang, you're watching Guiding Tech. Let's get started. A little bit of a disclaimer before we get started. We are running the beta version of OxygenOS 13 on the OnePlus 10 Pro. It recently came out and we would not recommend you to install it in any way because as we could observe, there have been a lot of different bugs. So if you have a secondary phone which can run the OxygenOS 13 beta, maybe try that out, but we would not recommend you to. Now, the first thing we often do is swipe down to get to the notifications panel. And here you see the first big difference. The notification panel and the quick settings panel both look very different from what you have seen in the past OnePlus phones. Now the first thing that you will see is the notification panel itself has now a solid color rather than the translucent finish that we used to get. Plus, this part is now translucent while it used to be solid. And here you will see that we have two buttons which are larger than the other buttons and they do not move while all of the other buttons move. Now here you will see that whenever I tap and hold, we get a quick access menu. So we can see all the Wi-Fi connections from here. Or if I press and hold the Bluetooth tab, then we'll see all of the different Bluetooth devices that are available for connection. Similarly, we see that the music player always is there regardless of if anything is being played or not. Now if we press and hold this, then we get to see another player, a music player only, but expanded version of it, where we get a few options. I don't know why this heart is here because this is the only one that works. But yeah, you see extra options along with controlling the music and a bigger album artwork. Now what about if we want to change the look of the notifications panel? Here we have an edit button. We simply press that. We get to the page where we can basically add in tiles or remove the tiles. But on OxygenOS 13, it's a little bit different. Now we have to go to this three dot icon and then press edit tiles. From here, we get to see all of the different tiles that we can add. And the bigger tiles can be changed with something of a smaller tile, and then the smaller tile will be the bigger tile. And accordingly, I'll go back to the previous setup. Now here, if I want to add one of the titles from this entire list, then I can simply just tap on it and it will be added. Now if you want to remove it, press here and it will be removed. So that's simple because here we had to drag it in. So making changes to the home screen is pretty similar to what it used to be. You simply touch and hold anywhere on the screen, then you get all of these different options down below. Now if you go to the wallpapers option, the only significant change you'll see here is all of these three categories that are listed up are now bigger and more distinct, so you can easily separate between the two. You can easily understand what each category will show you. Now moving on to changing or customizing the icons. When we open that menu, we see that the first change is that we see the wallpaper here on OxygenOS 13 while we don't on OxygenOS 12. And another change which will make this particular change make sense is the fact that we can now change the colors of these icons to match the wallpaper. So if I press it here, if I enable it, now you'll see that all of the different icons have changed. Their color scheme is a lot more like the wallpaper itself. If I apply it, this is still in beta, so what we see is that it's not applying it to all of the icons, it is applying it to some of the Google apps and almost all of the different OnePlus apps that we have. Another thing that we can change here that was not available on OxygenOS 12 but is available on OxygenOS 13 is when we go to more. Now we have another option which is Smart Search and App Drawer. Now basically there's a search bar in the app drawer. It used to be able to search the different apps on that are available on the phone, but now when we will be basically searching anything, then it will do a phone-wide search it'll go through the messages, it'll go through everything that is there and then give you the results accordingly. For now, it works selectively. Like if I go about and just type a name of an app here, like I'm just about to search for Telegram, you'll see that search in Google Play Store is appearing right in front of us. Now, if we turn it on, I don't know what's happening because it's still in beta stages, so it's still a little buggy. If I press it here, then it will just open the search results on Google Play Store for the app that I searched for. Now, this should apply to messages as well, but for now, it is only applicable to apps, as that is the only thing that seems to be working here. Now, apart from the things that have been added, some parts of this entire menu have been removed. For example, you don't see app startup and closing animation speed anymore. So you can't really change the speed at which an app opens or closes like you used to on OxygenOS 12. You cannot basically control whether an icon of the app that you just installed will appear on the home screen or not. So that's gone. But apart from that, things are pretty similar, plus some changes, some additions, and some removals. Alright, so now that we're done with the home screen, let's go about all the different default tabs that might have gone through some changes with the update. Let's start with the calculator. Now you see the first thing that can be observed is the fact that the button that brings in the different complications, which used to be here, is now up top. That's a little bit of inconvenience for the people who have smaller hands or just people in general because phones are getting so much bigger. Regardless, some conveniences that have been brought in is, do you see this button? That's not here anywhere to be found, but if I press that, you see a floating window of the calculator. Now, if you have opened another web page or you're trying to put in some calculations on some other document or in some message or anything, you just have a floating window of the calculator. You can do your different calculations right here. I am just writing anything right now because, I'm shooting a video. And you can also resize it. You can make it smaller, you can make it bigger. Anything on. And apart from this, if we go about, we see another button here that is not there on this calculator, which is a unit converter. So now you can basically convert all of the different units. You can convert your weight, you can convert the temperature, you can convert anything or any unit that you want converted or according to your calculation. Now the last thing is that here we used to see all the records or basically the history of our calculations through a simple swipe. Well, that is a little bit more complicated now. You have to press this three-dot icon and go to records, and now you will see all of the different calculations that you've done before. Alright, the next app we're going to talk about is the camera app. Let's open that. Now the first thing that you'll see is that these buttons have been switched out. So if we see that the high-res button has been replaced by the aspect ratio button. The high-res button is inside this drop-down menu. Same goes for the auto HDR option because auto HDR is right here, but now that has been switched out with the timer option, which used to be at least right here. Apart from this, right down in this area, you'll see that the focal length used to be determined by the amount of trees that you can see. When you zoom in, you see one tree. When you zoom out and you go to the ultra wide, you see 3 trees. So that has been basically changed to numbers. So now you see 0.6x. You see 1x, you see 3.3x. Now what is the first thing that you do after clicking a picture? You go to the Photos app to see if the picture is any good or not. So let's do that. Even though we've not clicked any pictures yet. So the first thing that you will see is that the main Photos tab is now very different. There are no different sized thumbnails of every picture. Every thumbnail of the picture is exactly the same size. No differences there. And if we go into albums, now we'll see that everything is pretty much the same, but the private save option has been removed from the Photos app on OxygenOS 13. And if we go into Explore, everything is pretty much the same. Of course, the number of pictures clicked on this phone is less, so we're not seeing as many, but it largely remains the same. Now, if we go to the 3-dot icon here and we go into settings, we'll see that basically the first thing that has changed is there is a privacy protection that has been added under share format on OxygenOS 13. Now, what does it do? It's basically hiding the location or basically removing the location and other properties from the metadata of the picture. So whenever you're sharing a picture, these details will not be going along with the picture no matter which app you're using. And another thing that you will see is that even though there is an autoplay videos option on both the versions of OxygenOS, here you can autoplay it without the sound. So even if you play a video, by default the sound will be muted. So that's a little bit of a convenient change. Nobody wants sound blaring out of the video right after they open it. Lastly, in the Photos app, you will see that whenever you go to edit anything from the Photos app right itself, there are basically two more options that you get. You can add stickers, which are downloadable. You can add stickers basically to any picture you want. So like if a face is detected, then that face will get a sticker according to what you can see, what you can download. And apart from that, you will see this new option on OxygenOS 13, which is AI palettes. AI palettes basically uses AI, obviously, to change the color scheme of the entire image, no matter what kind of image it is. Here it's a screenshot. I'm just showing you an example. You can basically change the entire color scheme of the photo. Now, the first thing that you will see that has changed in this is that the two tabs on top have been added and this has been removed. This is basically on OxygenOS 12 storage stats. So if I press this, I'll see how much of everything has occupied the storage of the device. Here we don't see that. Here we see that basically the options right here, the phone storage and the cloud drive have been shifted up to these two tabs. These two tabs, when I press on device storage, phone storage, you will see all of the different files available on the basic storage of the phone. And this is cloud drive. So any of the storage or any of the cloud storage that you have used provided by OnePlus, all of the different things that you've stored on it will show up when I press on this. Now, one of the oldest default apps from OnePlus is Shelf. Let's open that. And as you can see, everything looks a bit more iOS-like. Widgets look a lot more iOS-like, and you can, add certain widgets very easily now, which was not really a one-step process as it is right now on OxygenOS 13. You can see, again, a lot like iOS for some reason. But yeah, these are the different widgets you can have and a different sort of a style and a different sort of a look than before. Now, lastly, another change in the default app is when we talk about the screenshot editor. So whenever you take screenshots, let me just do that once, and we open the editor here, we'll see that while the markup menu here was just one line, that's pretty much it. You can't do anything here. You can't change the color of the line or you can't change anything. Here you can basically do whatever you want. You can change the color right here. You can go about and change basically the style at which the style through which this entire line will appear. So it can be a ballpoint pen, it can be a highlighter, it can be a pencil, it can be a fountain pen, and the definition that brings in, or you can just go about precisely erase any of the errors that you have made. All right, next up is the settings menu. Let's open that. Now here, overall that you see is that the settings menu seems a bit more colorful than before. And first, if we go to the Wi-Fi setting, there's a very small change here. Usually when you needed to know something about the Wi-Fi and the MAC address or anything like that, you used to go to additional advanced settings, and here you will see the Wi-Fi info, the MAC address, IPv4, IPv6 address, everything. Now, in order to see that on OxygenOS 13, you will need to basically, which is much simpler route to be honest, is just tap the I button here, and now you will see all of the information right here in this menu. Everything about the Wi-Fi will be right here. So if you want to disconnect, if you want to forget, if you want to share the password, if you want to do anything, right here from this menu, along with the information. Now, the next change is that the personalization settings category has been changed into wallpapers and style. And when you open it, we see that, first of all, that apart from always on display and everything else, we have a way to basically go and change the font. Now, when we go and change the font, which is not available here, we'll have to scroll down on OxygenOS 12, but OxygenOS 13 gives us in that tile right there. Here we see that another font has been added apart from OnePlus Sans, which is the One Sans. It is just another basic font which looks similar to the OnePlus Sans, but the only difference being that we can basically alter the weight of the font. We can make it bolder or we can make it a little bit slimmer. Now another change that you will notice is in always on display, because you get more styles now. You can personalize it, you can create something like I just created where it will open with such an animation. You can work on the animation, you can work on the colors, basically everything. And then you get canvas and custom patterns and a text or text and image. So you can have whichever sort of always on display that you prefer. If you prefer something subtle, the subtle options are still all there. If you want something shiny, then you can create something shiny. And the biggest change that we'll find in this menu is when we go to colors. In both these menus, we'll see that the colors here are pretty basic. We can choose anything out of these, or we can go to the color wheel on OxygenOS 12 and then change it accordingly. But on the new OxygenOS 13 update, basically this is entirely now very much the same as Realme or Oppo phones. We have a few themes right here which are there by default, or we can basically choose any color, any 4 colors out of the ones that are available on a wallpaper, and then make a thing out of that, and then make a theme out of that. We can also go about and choose a custom color, but when we have sort of material use theming, then why choose the single color? Here we can basically alter any of these colors. From here, we press OK, and then we'll see that all of our UI is basically has adapted to the colors of the wallpaper, which is great, because we did not see any of that, any sort of material hue theming entirely on OxygenOS 12. Now moving on, when we go to display and brightness, here we see the first thing that has been added is nature tone display toggle. Basically, what it does is it's adjusting the color temperature of the screen according to basically the ambient lighting of the room that the phone is in. So if I basically enable it, we'll see that the tone of the display, the color temperature of the display has become a little bit warmer. Some people like it, some people don't. I don't prefer it, so it's not here. It's never going to be enabled. But apart from that, we will see that the font and display size setting has been added to this particular menu, which we do not see in OxygenOS 12. But apart from that, everything is pretty much the same. Now moving on to sound and vibration. Here, the first thing that we see is there is this new toggle, which is media volume muted. So whenever I enable this, so from now on, whenever the phone is silenced, the media volume will also be silenced accordingly unless I manually change the media volume. Until then, it will be silenced. If I disable it, that won't be the case. And apart from this, if we go into haptics and tones, which is basically almost similar, but the only change is, which I really like, is the fact that you can alter how each and every small vibration feels on OxygenOS 13. When we go into how touches feel, we can either make it very crisp, so the vibration will be tighter and much more noticeable, or gentle, which will make it a little less noticeable, but still there for you to feel. Moving on to notifications and status bar, here we see that the only thing that will be changed is when we go into status bar, we can choose the notification icons that appear, the way they appear, and the battery style. If we go to battery style, another style has been added, which is the horizontal style, which is much more like iOS. But that's pretty much it. That's the only small change that we see in this menu. Now, to talk about a significant change, if we go into privacy, first of all, the way the menu appears has changed. You have to slide over to discover the rest of the section, which is the privacy protection and all. And here we see privacy dashboard being added. And privacy dashboard is basically an Android 13 feature where for the past 24 hours, whichever app has accessed anything that can be sensitive to us, be it the location, the camera, the microphone, or the body sensors, or calendar, anything, in the past 24 hours, you will be able to know which app accessed what. Just to be sure that any app which is not supposed to access your mic or camera or does not need to is not accessing it, so that you can be careful about which apps are on your phone. And if some app is seemingly a bit malicious or gaining access to apps or data that is not required, you can easily go about and delete it. Now, another big change that we see in this privacy section is system cloner. System Cloner, what it does is it creates a separate system of apps and data which has a separate password or a pattern. And whenever you put in that pattern from your lock screen, that system will be opening with another set of apps that you use, and everything will be basically according to that. So if I basically just make an account here, so if I put a password like this and confirm it, skip, enter system. So now I'm entering system clone, and now you will see that the entire home screen and everything about it has changed. And if I go about and basically put in the password in, then we see that everything is basically set to how it would be on a phone which I've not set up or changed the wallpaper of anything. Now if I put in the different pattern, I'm basically switching back to the default profile. Now let's move on to the special features that we get with our OxygenOS 13. And the first thing that we'll see is split screen. So now it's pretty simple. You put a 3-finger swipe on any app. Let's just go about and do it. If I have opened Photos, for example, and if I do a 3-finger swipe from down, then I can basically go about and open another app and then share files accordingly. That's pretty simple. Now the next feature that we have to see is flexible windows, which is basically a floating window of an app that you use in a full screen. But now you're just basically floating it across the entire screen. And we have a bunch of other things that we can enable with it. For example, button-free mode, where if we have a certain app open in a floating window, for example, right here, if we open it in a floating window, now the action button that we have, that's simplified to only close and nothing else. Otherwise, there will be a bunch of different options that we can open up. So if I just want to close it now, it'll be simplified. It'll just open the option to close it. Apart from that, there can be a quick hide window in game where if I'm playing a game and there is a floating window over it, I just need to tap back onto the game, and this floating window will go into the left side or the right side of the screen and will be basically hidden from the game. And apart from that, if I have 2 different apps open and I want to share a file across 2 different apps, then I can basically enable this mode, and accordingly, I can just pick up a file from one app and then share it to the other app. If I have a floating window of gallery over Drive, then I can basically try to resize it, hold the app from here, hold a particular file from here, and then just directly upload it onto Google Drive. Now the next feature on the list is Smart Sidebar, which is basically a new addition to OxygenOS, but it has been seen on other Realme phones, where we have a sidebar, much like a Samsung phone or some other phone which has similar features. We can get a sidebar which will give us quick access to certain actions like screenshot or starting a screen recording or opening a certain app. We can edit this to basically put in whichever app that we want. If I put in calendar, if I put in Chrome, or I press done, then I can basically quickly access this particular sidebar and then open the app that I want from any screen. And accordingly, I can also hold this down and then shift it to wherever it does not lead to accidentally opening it. And another special feature which has been brought over from the Realme counterparts of OnePlus is simple mode, where simple mode is just basically when you have to give your phone to an elder person who does not really know how to use a smartphone and they just want to simply do a bunch of things temporarily, then you can just enter this mode, and what this will do is increase the text size, limit the number of apps, disable app drawer, so that all the basic functionality that they want out of a phone, they can perform it, and they are also able to read everything. So all the fonts are increased in size, and the settings are also simplified, so that the necessary basic things that they require out of the phone are available for them. And at the same time, the gestures are disabled and you get the navigation buttons again. And that's pretty much it. If you want to exit it, you simply press exit simple mode and you'll be back to the original screen. Now, another one of those special features is Kid Space. Kid Space is basically whenever a kid wants your phone and you want to give him your phone, but you also want to restrict the number of apps to the bare minimum, which they will use, and also restrict the time. So in that case, you get to select the different apps, you get to set a time limit, which can be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or something custom. And you can also put in certain protections for their eyes, like a warning where they need to go to a place which has more light so that their eyes are not hurt, and amongst other things. And whenever you enter, you get a basic UI with all of the different apps that they're allowed to use. And whenever you want to basically exit, press exit, but it will require your fingerprint. So in case the 15-minute or 30-minute time limit also gets over, they won't be able to access your phone still. You will need to put in your fingerprint and then it will get back to normal. Now moving on to the final change that I saw in OxygenOS 13 is where the system settings basically became additional settings. And here we see a new accessibility feature, which is assistive ball, which is basically a circle that appears onto the screen and can be used for multiple different purposes. It can operate gestures, or it can basically become a source of different actions that can be performed just by tapping. So under gesture operations, we can tap it, double tap, and touch and hold. So by default, when we tap it, it'll go back. And if we double tap it, we'll go to recent tasks. So let's just double tap and we go to recent tasks. And if we touch and hold, then we simply go back to the home screen. Now we can also switch this to something else. We can basically, when we tap it, this can be used to bring down the notification drawer, lock the screen, enable one-handed mode, take a screenshot, or just nothing, which you can do if you want. And all of these functionalities are available for all of the different ways we can interact with assistive ball. And the tap menu is where you just tap it and you get all of the different actions that you can perform. You can take a screenshot, you can go back, you can open recent tasks, you can lock the screen, or you can go directly to the home screen. We can also change this to something else if you want. Basically, the number of options available on tab are more. And all we need to do is just 2 taps to get to whichever place we want, through back or do anything or perform any other action that we want to. And apart from all of these different changes, the one overarching theme that I found with OxygenOS 13 is it is a lot more colorful, if you know what I mean. And the animations and the different ways the apps open, the animation speed of it is much slower, but it seems a bit more refined. Well, that's pretty much it. If you like the video, like it. If you love the video, then press the red subscribe button, and beside that, you'll find a bell icon. Press that, you'll get notifications for all our videos from now on. This has been Gaurang, and I'll see you in the next one.